Alrighty, welcome back everybody. It has been a while since I have done an update video, and frankly, there is not a surprising reason for that, because nothing much has really changed. Although it would be nice to do a lot more community-style events with lots of people participating, but unfortunately, that's not always possible to do, since I do notice that a lot of people that I know were regulars a couple of years ago are more busy with whatever personal things they want to do now. But to give credit where credit is due, some of the people that I met all those years ago are still here, even if they're not always present for one reason or another. But nevertheless, I'm still glad to be here, still going through the motions, even if it means resting more. I actually been resting more and not always coming on early like I did in my early years, simply because it's my way of trying to basically try to deal with the stress. Naturally, if this was a full-time gig, it'd be nice if you actually did turn into a full-time gig. It would be a lot more flexible on my part if money wasn't the issue. But still glad to be here, coming home and hoping to at least get some entertainment, just to escape real life for like a little bit. Even just like any other person that want to escape work or just get away for a little bit for some entertainment. And frankly, it has been getting more tricky finding video games in particular, even mobile games for that matter, just to find games that I actually do want to play in particular. Now, most of these games that you see on my Steam library here, this is not an image, by the way. It's actually it's actually my computer monitor here. Most of these games I'm very fortunate to have had gifted to me by a couple of people, but most of them from Knight0998. I hope I said that screen name properly. But he's been here after all these years. Very fortunate to have most of these games. And I did somewhat go through some of the games from the Steam library on the left side there. I did go through some of them, revisited some, and unfortunately I had to make a choice of hiding the games or just getting rid of them because I don't want to have a reminder, especially if they do have a update or a news of an update, but it's not a game I don't care about anymore. It's been slow revisiting games of the past and games that were gifted to me in the past. And when I did finally get to some of them, I did finally hide them. Can't refund, unfortunately. If you got a game gifted to you and it's already been more than 2 weeks, you can't refund it at all. And in some cases, you cannot even refund if it is below 2 hours for some reason. But that's another whole story there. The point is, when it comes to most games that I've seen in the last few years, most do not stand the test of time, in my opinion. Like, for example, this is something that I have talked about in the previous VODs, but if this is your first time hearing this, might as well just talk about it for a bit. There are two Capcom games, Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata, that came out this year so far, and both of those games, in my opinion, without going into too much detail, they're above average. I mean, they're entertaining. You'll probably likely complete them, but it's not something you'll think about too much as time goes on. They're not exactly, really great games that you're going to think about years later. It's kind of like movies in a way, in a sense. There's a reason why there are certain movies, whether it's for the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, that are still talked about today, even if it's been decades since they have come out. And that's the problem with video games in a nutshell as well. Since everything is oversaturated now, and trying to find decent games is already difficult as is, you just try to find the ones that you genuinely care about, personal preference, and you try your best to avoid the hype, because sometimes the hype is not always a good thing. That's what I've learned. Like, for example, Sea of Thieves. I used to play that quite a bit a few years ago, but as time went on, that game to me personally felt like a chore, or it was simply just not for me. And the sad news is there are some games that I used to enjoy with quite a bit of people for a good time period, but unfortunately, the I think the main problem with most video games now is retention. Not It's trying to keep a good number of players still playing it 5 years later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and when the player count goes lower and lower, and these are not single player games I'm talking about, by the way, it gets more tricky to try to try to get some games out of it, even if it's with randoms. Again, none of these things that I'm saying is anything new, but those are just my thoughts that I've been going through. If I want to wrap things up, in a sense, the only single player game that I can think of that I have completed personally from start to finish, and I still think about it after all these years, is Baldur's Gate 3. And if you don't know, I did complete that game a while ago. Spent over 100 hours on that game. Basically going the quote unquote good guy route whenever I could. And I still have memories of that game even after all this time because the storytelling in that was very compelling. And I'm not Dungeons and Dragons type of a player. I don't know the lore. I don't know the intricacies of Dungeons and Dragons whatsoever. But the storytelling in that was very interesting and compelling to me that I still think about that game, especially some of the characters after all these years. Would I say it's better than Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 if you include Mass Effect 3's ending? Not really. I don't think so. But compared to most other games that have come out nowadays in recent years, it's one that stands out from the rest. I hope there will be more games that will stand out. There's also this Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1, if you want to call it that. I have not gone through that game at all since I haven't been in the mood for that. But I'm hoping I can get into that sometime soon after going through some of the other games from my Steam library, especially this Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the original 2009 game that I actually find entertaining. Again, even if I'm not the best at it. But to make a long story short, still here. Not many games really stand out, although I'm very fortunate to have had made videos on the games that I've been playing for the last few years. And if I'm going to be quite honest, not every game out there deserves a highlight video or short. And not all channels out there are mean-spirited. That's another obvious thing to say, but in my personal opinion, there are some channels out there that make really big exaggerated faces on a certain event that doesn't deserve the highlighted exaggerated reaction just for entertainment purposes. And you kind of get tired of that after a while. And they're basically and it's just, trying to get, those little sweet viewpoints just for attention. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like attention too as well in a sense. But trying to be humble about it is very difficult. But at least I try. It's not easy. Well, I've been talking for like almost 10 minutes. Again, all of this is unscripted, by the way. I have nothing in front of me here or anything on the side, but those are just my thoughts since I figured some of you do deserve to hear my thoughts unscripted, especially after all this time since the last update video I put out. So yeah, I'm still here. Glad to still be here, and I'm glad that you are still here. So if you wish to do your part, feel free to spread the word. We're trying to keep this little channel of ours hopefully interesting for some of you. I'm glad there are still people here. So thank you, and let's continue.